Welcome to our Monday Addiction Recovery Capital Hope, HOPE, all capitalized, and resources. We are on another week. And, oh, share it. Hey, at least we got technology this week. This is amazing. We're back in action. We're back in action. Hey, today we are going to be on step 9. Restitution and reconciliation, and it's a step that when you're going to make amends, and I've got a guest today, Brian, amazing friend. He was actually the person that the number one person that I would listen to when I went to meetings, and I still do. But I mean, there's so many good people out there, but Brian was, for me, the one that hit me. Everything he said, I held on to. We'll get to him in a second. He's a big BYU fan too, so if you don't like the BYU, you're in trouble with him.
I missed the opportunity to wear a shirt today until he rubbed in.
You should have. You should have.
I should have.
Come forward a little bit. So today, tell us what step 9 is, Brian, in the AA program.
Yeah. Well, so the 9th step is make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except where to do so would injure others, or them, or others. Right.
And in the LDS program, it's wherever possible, make direct restitution to all persons you have harmed.
Right.
And so
slight difference.
Yeah, not much, but it's a difference. It's a difference in program, but each program works different for different people. So that's the most important thing that we talk about. Okay, I'm going to let Brian take it from here and run with. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Brian. Where you been? How you been? Where you got to? How you got where to go? Where you're at?
I'll try to put it in a nutshell form as much as I can. I'd probably talk for an hour. Right? We like hearing ourselves talk, addicts. But
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty normal individual. Normal Utah kid. I grew up with 6 other brothers and sisters. Good family. Dad was in church education, mom was stay at home. I had nothing really crazy going on. I mean, I had an eye injury. That was like the biggest deal in my life at that point in time, right?
Sure.
And so I was a good student through elementary, middle school, high school. High school is when things maybe changed a little bit. Toward the end of my high school years, I ended up starting to date, and, maybe church wasn't as cool, right? Going to church wasn't as cool. And then I started working at a restaurant, and I was exposed. My worldview opened up a little bit to the bar scene.
Yeah.
I didn't partake, obviously, at that point in time, but it seemed really attractive.
Yeah. You see a bunch of people out there thinking they're having fun.
Yeah. It looked like fun.
Yeah.
I ain't going to lie about it. It looked like fun. But,
Sure.
I had a good foundation. And, but years later, it definitely took its toll. So kind of the beginning of where things kind of started going a little bit for me was around age 20. I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to try to do a mission for the church. And so I tried to get myself all worthy and do all the things I need to do. And for some reason, it just wasn't happening.
Yeah.
And for males in Utah, hopefully can relate with me. There's a lot of social pressure. I worked in a restaurant at age 20, and you would see people come in and look at you funny, like, "Hey, Brian, what you doing?"
Right.
And it's like, "Oh my goodness, what story am I going to say? Should I just go out and tell them all the sins I'm doing? That's the reason I'm not out, right?"
Yeah, they're going to ask you no matter what, and that's a
right.
problem with it, I think too. Even, why aren't you doing?
Right.
What? It's none of your business.
Right. There's a lot of shame and guilt that starts building up, even though their intentions are good.
Yes,
right.
That's
Their
true.
intentions are good.
That's true.
And so I started feeling that pressure, and I started getting anxiety really bad, and started getting depressed at point in times. And I had ended that, that relationship that I had in high school was over, and I was, all my friends were on missions, and I was getting really lonely. And I started relaxing a little bit. I finally gave up trying to do the mission. I wasn't anti-church, but I was like, I need to take a break.
Yeah.
I'm having panic attacks, and so
Happens.
Yeah,
It's common.
yeah. And so, anyways, a few years later, I had dated my current wife. We dated for a few years. Everything was great. We were expecting our first child. And, fatherhood and new to marriage and work really was very stressful for me. All that anxiety was just kicking my butt. It was, and I was losing weight, and I don't have a lot of weight to lose.
You're like me.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of weight to lose. And so I finally relented, and I went to a doctor. And, you know, like a good doctor, he gave me anti-anxieties, antidepressants, sleeping pills, you name it. And that was my start to having prescriptions. Now, granted, I casually took, you know, some pain pills before that, but nothing wild. I experimented with them, so my introduction, I mean, technically was not through a prescription, but
you weren't dependent on them.
No,
You're just experimenting,
and
like
so,
you said.
Yeah, and so through my early 20s, I just really struggled with learning to deal with stress and normal everyday things. You know, my job was stressful. I was trying to work my way up in the restaurant world, working lots of hours, bosses that were terrible, and they, you know, and you know, new to fatherhood, and I wasn't sleeping good, and my use progressed on my antidepressants, my anxieties. Just I get to the point where I was using probably early 20s. I don't know, more than half the day I was on something.
Yeah, and it says on the bottle take one, but you're starting to take two.
Yeah, and
you're starting to take three.
Yeah, and you know, I didn't feel any guilt whatsoever. I wasn't doing anything wrong.
Sure.
Right. My doctor gave it to me for anxiety. I'm feeling anxiety. I took it. Well, I'm feeling more anxiety, so I took more. Yeah. Right. I was also bootlegging and hiding alcohol around my house. Yeah, and going and drinking by myself at bars, and nobody knows about this. I was a completely closet drinker at that point in time, and I hid my use of prescription drugs for quite a bit. Later into my 20s, I'm using all the time, and my morals are gone. And by the time I hit my late 20s, I was on something probably 22 to 24 hours a day. You know, my 5 a.m. wake-up call with anxiety and panic, needing to sneak out of bed and find something. Yeah. And I was an equal opportunity user. I mean, if I was out of my pills...
Marijuana.
I didn't go that route.
I did.
I should have.
Yeah.
I should have.
But
But for me, it was worse than that. I'd hit the cold medicine.
Oh, yeah.
I'd just chug a whole bottle of cold medicine just to get me back to sleep. You know, if I didn't... I was opportunistic. If I get my hands on this, I'll use this. If I get, you know, and then I started mixing, and goodness gracious, my 20s are a blur. Yeah. I got to the point where I felt like I was kind of losing a grasp on reality, and also in my late 20s, I started becoming a criminal of sorts. I started getting in some really stupid stuff that I won't go into details. I paid my debt to society. I won't incriminate myself anymore. But it was terrible.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're on step 9. I'm not going to incriminate myself.
You're good.
But yeah, so it was getting to the point where I've said this in meetings a lot, where I was like watching my life on a movie. I could see my life going in front of me, but I had no control over what was going on. It was wild, and I felt like I was losing my grasp on reality. And I was suicidal. I don't know if I'd have ever gone through with it. I kind of attempted it, but I don't know if I was attention seeking or what. I wanted to die, but I didn't.
Yeah,
right.
That's exactly where I was. I didn't care.
Yeah,
if I did or didn't.
Yeah, and I had a little girl who probably kept me alive.
How was your marriage?
My marriage was not good at that point in time. I did everything in my power to destroy it. Yeah, and my wife is amazing. And bless her heart.
I've met her many times.
Yeah, I mean, I could go on for a long time about how great she is, but in a nutshell, she handled and put up with me, and I think, you know, now after the fact, I've talked to her, and she's mentioned that she knew the person I was. Yeah. You know, when we started dating, before, you know, everything had kind of taken me over. But I'm sure she would have been well within her rights to leave me, and I'd lose custody, and, you know. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I finally, on December 23rd, 2010, was blacked out in a parking lot with bad intentions, and I got arrested. Woke up. I woke up in an interrogation room, getting interrogated by the police. And, you know, at that point in time, my world kind of came crumbling down. All my secrets I was hiding, how much I was using, criminal activities, it kind of came to the forefront. Yeah. You know, my family was all here in St. George. I was living up north at the time. and I had to make a phone call to the wife from Salt Lake County Jail. Oh, by the way, I'm not coming down for Christmas Eve. I'm in jail with multiple felony charges, and I got to, everybody loves detoxing in jail. I started there, and luckily for me, I got bailed out, but I got put into treatment center on January 1st, 2011, and so December 28th, 2010 is my sobriety date.
Nice.
It was my last use was just Xanax to help me with my detoxing.
Yeah.
So it's not even that great. My last hoorah was the 23rd of December.
At that point, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I just wanted some relief.
Yes.
But yeah, I got into treatment then, and I did 90 days.
What facility can you say?
It was called the Arc of Little Cottonwood. It was up in Sandy. They're no longer open right now, unfortunately. But it was great for me. It was really strict. It was inpatient. I didn't get to see my daughter for about 70 some odd days. Yeah. Family groups were across the room, and I couldn't wink at my wife. I couldn't wave. Yeah. That was really uncalled for, and you can get some sort of punishment.
Sure.
And so, it was intense, but it was what I needed.
Yeah.
So, but I struggled. First few weeks, I didn't even think I was an addict. I felt so out of place. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'm dependent on this stuff. Sure, my life is in shambles. I might be looking at 15 years in prison, but I'm not an addict, guys. I'm not an addict. I can quit
at any time.
Yeah, I'll quit at any time. I've tried before, but I didn't try whatever way. There has to be another way I haven't tried.
Yeah, right.
But my step one experience was during a graduation that treatment centers do, and they were playing a song
for someone else that had completed the program. Right,
and I lost it. I just totally lost it. I was ugly crying. And I didn't even care. I mean, I was a shell of a human being. I was just, the best I could do was breathe. And that was very hard to do. When you're detoxing, the anxiety, the nausea, I felt so out of place, and I gave up. That was it. I was like, okay.
Surrendered.
I was complete surrender. And that's just the best place to be when you're in addiction. It sucks. It sucks. But I mean, for me, I'm not the type of person that could have maybe quit without multiple rock bottoms.
Yeah. Who was it? Someone said the other day that, I didn't think I had another basement, but all of a sudden there it was, another basement. That's why I tell everyone when they ask for my family member this or my family member needs help, but how do I help them and love them?
Yeah.
They have to figure it out.
That's a tough pill to swallow, isn't it? No pun intended. It really is. You want to help them. You don't want to see your loved ones suffer. And yet for some real meaningful recovery, you got to want to do it yourself. You want to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
And for me, the addiction was just so powerful. I don't know what else it would have took. Honestly.
You got to be at your bottom.
Yeah. And I was.
And different people are different bottoms.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what you love about going to meetings, right?
Yeah, exactly.
As I sit in, you sit in meetings and you're like, wow, I am so glad I don't have his bottom.
Yes.
I am so grateful for my bottom. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I won't trade places with anybody, at all. And my bottom was enough to put me on my knees.
Sure.
Literally, when I got put in jail that first time, I had to be in the psych ward, no clothes, on a bed.
Rubber room.
It was a rubber room with one blanket. I had no idea how long I was going to be there.
Right.
And I've shared this story before, but at that point in time, I was just all I could do just to be in my own skin. And a song came to my head of a church hymn of I'm a Child of God. It's the weirdest thing. So, we talk about, in step 2, come to believe, at my lowest low, the foundation of my life, the foundation that I had growing up in a good home in a church, kind of shone through. Now, I suffered for a lot long after that point, but it was really neat for me now to look back.
Yeah.
That I was able to have that experience, even though it gave me very little relief at the moment. So.
Yeah. So you were sitting in the parking lot, and you didn't realize at that time when you were incarcerated that was probably the biggest blessing of your life. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Now, looking back.
Yeah, absolutely. How I got to that parking lot, I don't remember leaving my house. Yeah. How did I not kill somebody?
Sure.
The most irresponsible thing a human could do. Killing myself would have been bad enough, but at least I wouldn't hurt anybody else.
Oh, isn't that true?
Right?
all these people that drink and drive. And I mean, I've had a niece that got just totally disfigured and blind now because of a drunk driver. And you just don't think of it at that time. You're just like, I'll get home tonight. I did last night.
That's right.
You know, I'm not going to hurt anyone but myself.
The deception and the lies we tell ourselves in addiction. And I've always thought of addiction as something that's kind of an out of body. It's like, I've always said, it's kind of like a monster in my head, right?
Yeah.
It kind of thinks for itself.
Sure does.
Right? And I battle with this thing, but, you know, we justify.
Good people.
And lie. Yeah. You know, I wasn't a bad person.
No.
I was doing a lot of bad stuff.
Sure.
I should be sitting at the point of the mountain for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I did 90 days. I'll pick up a little bit.
Yeah.
I did 90 days, and I had a court case pending. I got to come home for a little bit, waiting for my trial date, my sentencing date. I had a good attorney that was able to push my sentencing out while I completed treatment. And yeah, I went to court to get sentenced. And this kind of ties in with step 9 a little bit, is, you know, the part where before they sentence you, the judge will ask, you know, do you have any thoughts, anything you'd like to share? And I said, I'm here to take responsibility for my actions. And then just stopped.
He's probably like, wait, this don't happen.
Yeah, she took a sit back in her seat, you know, backed up a little bit and looked, you know, and I've shared quite a bit about my aura was different.
Yep.
At that point in time, I'd been clean 7 months.
And you've worked the step?
I had worked. I was probably between 7 and 8-ish at that point in time. Okay. And that to me was a form of restitution. It was a 9th step for society to a point.
Sure.
It's putting hey, you know, I don't want to be in there longer than I have to be.
I've showed I'm changing,
but
I'm
shown. I've done the best I can with what I've had, but now it's time to pay the piper a little bit.
Sure. And
lucky for me, I relatively speaking got off kind of easy. You know, I had to go to jail there, and I had all the other things that went with probation, and I had fines to pay back. I had a letter to write as a person in my case, which was part of my 9th step. My 8th and 9th step. Even though it was forced on me, it's still an 8th and 9th step.
Sure is.
I tell you what, writing that letter, I was sitting in jail, and I wrote that letter to this gentleman. And that 8th step I took seriously. I prayed about it, and I pondered about it, and I, you know, wrote down and erased. And I wanted to not justify any behavior. I could say, hey, you know, I struggled. I sucked at life.
Yeah.
I took pills. I got hooked. But I tried to keep my side of the street clean, right?
Love it.
And I sent it out, and I don't know. I wasn't allowed to talk to the dude,
yeah.
Right? But I sent it out, and you know what? I got the benefit, and I hope that, you know, he was able to see some context. You know, whether he accepts it or not is not up to me. But
yeah, that's an important part of step 9, is that wherever possible, where you can't hurt people or you can't go if you're not to be around them,
right?
You've got to be very careful about that. But you've got to figure out a way to make that restitution.
Right. How selfish of me to want to feel better and to make somebody else, you know, be in a bad position. Let's say, you know, you go do an amends and it makes, you know, it'll injure somebody else.
Yeah. Or
put them in a bad spot. How selfish is that of me?
Sure.
To say, well, I want to feel better and I want to do my steps and I want to do them right. Well, that's good motives. Also, but it's all about keeping your side of it, you know, your side of the street clean, is the saying, right? And
absolutely.
And there's an enormous amount of gray area.
Yeah.
In there.
Everyone's is different. Everyone's 12-step, no matter what it says in the directions, yours is going to be a little different.
Right. That's right. We're all unique. We have so many different things in common. Yeah. You know, that's one of the great powers of meetings, is we support each other and we feel comfortable because we can relate with each other. And yet we all have our own path, and we all might do the steps just a little bit different. And your higher power might be a little bit different than my higher power.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's also what's so cool about the 12 steps. There's not like a one size fits all.
Right.
Right.
It's for all.
Absolutely.
It'll adjust to whatever you got to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Brian, go back to step 9 and in your life, more obviously what we talked about. We're not saying names and stuff, but
sure.
You know, you wrote the list and you're ready and you're nervous and you're prepared and you're going to make these amends. And how did it go?
Well, I did a couple different kinds of amends. I did indirect, and I did personal up front, and I still have some amends to do. So
yeah, they come up.
Right, and I felt like my brain power was pretty good at that point in time, and yet different situations trigger different memories. But my first amends I did was when I was serving my short sentence, I sent out a few letters, one to that person in my case, another one's to some family members, and I really, really enjoyed that part. I didn't feel at the time that I was letting myself off the hook. I felt like I was able to get some really good things down, and it's not like I wasn't going to talk to that person after I got out of jail. Sure. I was. Certainly, if there was more to talk about, I was willing to do it. But I did some of those, and those were very therapeutic. But as far as my personal amends that I did face-to-face, yeah, I mean, typical story where you're just like nervous as all get out. What if this happens? What if that happens? You know, and I just had to rely on what I learned in the 8th step about, you know, preparing really, really well and praying. You know, I want to do things the way they need to be done, that my higher power wants them to be done and not the way I want them to go. I don't need to get anything out of this. This is all about, you know, setting right wrongs.
Yeah, and not point out anyone else's wrongs, just owning our own wrongs.
That's right, and that can be really difficult.
Yeah,
with especially your close relationships, because there's common hurts.
Good thing that I found about my close relationships, Brian, I don't know if it was the same for you, but, you know, like you said, you were 7 months into the game before you're making your amends, maybe a year, whatever, whoever, where. Everyone's going to be a different part. Sometimes it takes someone 4 months to do all the steps. Sometimes it takes years, you know, they just can't get past something. But for me, the loved ones that I went and made my amends with, it was almost like they had seen me change, and they'd watched the light in me, and they'd watched every behavior that I ever did was totally not the old me. And so they were willing more. It seemed like to me, I didn't have anyone that say, you're not, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to take this. Every one of them took it and you know, it responded well for me. Right.
And, you know, and that's kind of where, you know, the AA4 founders had a little bit of foresight. I mean, this is the 9th step.
It's not number one.
It's not number one.
We've done that too many times.
We want to go out and apologize to everybody and get everybody off our back and let everybody know how sorry we are and how it's going to be different this time. But we do a lot of work before we get there. And so, you know, when I did my face-to-face, people are just happy. They're just happy that you're there and you're facing the music a little bit, and you know, and
you've showed change this
exactly.
time.
Yeah, and people can tell.
It's not just that empty promise.
Yeah, you can tell. People that have been in addiction a long time, I think your loved ones know when you're just feeding them.
Yeah.
And they know when you're genuine and you've been living it for a long time. And so, you know, yeah, I did those, and not, I didn't all of a sudden be friends with everybody, but for the most part, I mean, 99% of the people in my circle, what have you, were just happy that I was back to being the old person and that I was clean and I was living a good life.
Yeah.
You know, and what a blessing that is, right?
Truly.
What a blessing. I mean, I need all the help I can get.
Yeah, all of us do. And
yeah.
And we don't see that in our addiction. We're by ourselves. We're fighting a fight that's just, we cannot take it on because we have no help.
Right.
And we won't take help.
Yeah. It's the exact opposite of where we're at in addiction, where we're isolated and we don't want to tell anybody and we're so ashamed. The complete opposite is we're out telling people where we're wrong.
Yeah.
We're you know, and we're connecting with people, and we need it. I mean, I openly will say, I need your guys' support. I don't need you to, you know, love
do my laundry.
Yeah, that's right. But you know, but I need to do this. I mean, if I made the commitment to do whatever it took to go to every effort, then I need to do this so I don't have you know, a reason to relapse and to make right this relationship.
I had a few friends where I'd tell them, you know, if you see me and notice me, you know, acting different, tell me to get out of my head.
Yeah.
You know, call me on it, rebuke me, you know, and I'll take it. You know, that's what I think about an addict in recovery when you truly know that they're there. They'll accept criticism and not take offense to it.
Right. You can kind of gauge where your recovery's at, right?
Yeah.
And how you can take negative criticism.
Sure.
You know, and it's so cool that people in meetings and your recovery circle, they can call you. They feel comfortable calling you out on that stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's up to us to honestly, hopefully see that our recovery is strong enough where we can, you know, say, all right, yeah, I need to take a step back. You know, put my ego in check and kind of see what's going on.
Right there, you said it. It's something that jumped out to me going over step 9 today. Was once again, we need to humble ourselves. Put my ego in check, you said. humble ourselves. We needed to humble ourselves again, you know, throughout these steps. That so much is pride and humbling ourselves. Get rid of the pride. Is that what you're familiar with?
Yeah, and it's all getting rid of the pride through doing what God's will is, submitting to His will, right? Yeah. That's it.
Doing the right thing.
You know, and so by submitting my will, then I am putting my will, my selfishness, my motives, you know, aside, and I'm open to doing His, whatever they may be.
Yeah.
You know, right or wrong, hard or easy, you know, and, you know, the cool thing is they're the most beneficial.
Yeah. You always feel better after when you do those tough decisions.
Right.
You make that tough decision, and then you're like, man, I'm glad I listened to that way, when we used to would have totally went away from that thought.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you shun that stuff like the plague, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So. Yeah. So, Bright, how's your family life now?
Family life's great. So kids? I have two. So one of the biggest blessings that I've had in recovery is my wife and I had fertility issues. So we had one. And so 10 years in our marriage, 10 years after my first daughter was born, we had another one come along out of nowhere.
Yeah,
and,
I remember.
that just rocked my wife and I's world, obviously, to think that we weren't ever going to have kids again. But
you'd accepted that pretty much, right?
Well, yeah, now. But I just think back of, you know, the last few years that I was in active addiction, we were thinking about trying. I mean, and I'll speak for myself. I won't speak for my wife. Maybe she was kind of saying, like, no, this ain't happening. My husband's a disaster.
Right.
But I seriously wanted to try to have another one. I'm like,
that could have saved you.
And
in your mind, you were thinking,
yeah, you know,
that'll straighten me out.
I just need this. This is what I'm missing.
Yeah, every time it's something that, if this happens, I'm done. If this happens, that's when I'll quit. If I get a better job, that's when I'll quit. And it always ends up, tomorrow I'm quitting. But for me, it went 5 years. And tomorrow I'd be quitting, and then all of a sudden, 10 years.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, I have every intention of never touching a substance again. 20 years.
Yeah.
Crazy, the mindset.
And it's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild. And like I say, one of the coolest blessings is we didn't have a child at that point in time. Can you imagine bringing a child into that situation?
I did it.
And yet, the perfect time in my recovery, after I had, I don't know, probably 4+ years, this child comes along. And so, I mean, it's been difficult to get used to being a young dad again, right? But it's one of the greatest blessings. And my life's really simple right now, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Yep. You know, I crave peace. I crave structure, and doing these 12 steps is kind of, you know, conditioned me for that. And that's great, because I don't need to have extravagance. Sure, I'd like some, don't get me wrong, but I don't need them.
Yeah,
you know,
you're happy with what you got right now. You have goals, but you're also happy that if it was at the point where nothing changed, you're fine.
Yeah. Oh,
simple.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if nothing changed right now, I'm a heck of a lot better than I was not too many years ago.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, it's that perspective, and I try to remind myself of that quite a bit.
I have to remind myself about that quite a bit, because I always want more, and I'm thinking, if you'd have told me 5 years, 3 months ago that I would have what I have now, I'd say that's all I ever need.
Right.
And so I very much got to take that the flesh out of me and say, slow down, champ.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just part of my natural person is that I have to remind myself every once in a while to sit back and smell the roses a little bit. Be grateful for what I have.
Look at those kids in the face and know that those are what life's all about.
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago that I was trying to take myself out of this world.
Yeah.
It really wasn't that long ago. And I try to keep that perspective and that humility, that, you know, a reminder of my step one.
Sure. Even 8 years into the game.
I'm 7 years. Goodness gracious, I'm at 8 years in December.
Still aware of it every day.
I have to be.
I love it.
I had a lot of good people, man. A lot of good people that said a lot of really good things that I just took. You know.
Yeah.
I've said one a lot in meetings that I know that you loved is having a healthy fear of my addiction.
Tammy knows that one.
That'll be Steve from my treatment center, one of the directors. I was like that. I took to that, man.
Healthy
I was like,
fear, not over fearing, but letting yourself know, this is where I can be.
Right. And you know, life run on fear is no good.
No.
But
it's no lie.
To me, a healthy fear is I know where this goes.
Yeah.
And I respect the heck out of what it has, and it's always going to be bigger than me. And because of that, I do what I need to do every day. And I'm not perfect on it by any stretch of the imagination, but
you're willing.
But I'm willing, which is like, you might as well like crochet that into something right now, you know, for all us acts, willingness, right? Put that into step 9.
Yep.
Your biggest enemy, right? Or a boss that was horrible to you forever. You don't get to kind of not do those amends.
Yeah. Got to let it go.
And you got to be able to do them and keep your side of the street clean and not bring up all the horrible things they did to you.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Right?
the key. They should know that, but that's their side.
It is.
They have the same access as you do.
Right. And the big book talks about, you know, 9 times out of 10, they're going to go great, you know, and you're going to be better off for them. And they're going to be the biggest spiritual growth for us is the hardest 9 steps that we have to do are the biggest growth opportunities for us.
Biggest. And that's where it's at is growth.
Exactly. You
Brian,
know,
I thank you so much for coming and spending a half hour of your time to come and help others try to gain some hope. What a day. This has been just a treat to hear you. And I've always told you from the first day, you have been the one that I've keyed in on everything you would say. I went to every Sunday meeting anticipating Brian being there. And if he wasn't there, I got through it, but it was tough. It was tough.
I didn't miss many. I've always loved hearing you share, man. You've always been a rock star in my eyes, man. And I'm nobody special. I've just been willing to share the message. And
it's okay to be average. I'm okay with that.
Me too.
No center of attention now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you have a great day, Brian. You listeners out there, tune in next Monday. We're going to have another wonderful guest, and we'll get Brian back here again if he'll be willing. And have a great day.